This next speaker is Jim Stevens, and he is hands down the smartest man that I've ever met. I have no worry. He needs no introduction. He is an innovator. He coined problem-based learning at DSST. The man, the legend, Jim Stevens.
I love to get introductions like that for sure.
All right, so I entered the world of education about 20 years ago, a really long time ago, with two goals. The first immediate goal was to sort of change the lives of young people as either a teacher or a mentor. And it's been a pretty good run, and I'm pretty proud of what I've been able to achieve in that first goal. Now the second goal, believe it or not, is a little bit loftier than the first. See, my second goal is to totally redesign the education system or a new learning environment, something that's actually going to change the world. Now, one thing that I've noticed is that being a teacher is such an all-consuming profession. It's very, very difficult to sort of expand and extend yourself beyond sort of your own classroom, your own school, to bring about the kind of change that you want to bring. So, this trimester, at the beginning of the year, I took a risk. I took what I like to call a learning and living sabbatical. So what I did is I tried to immerse myself into the real world. See, what I've realized with education is that one of the biggest challenges that we have is that we have this disconnect between what goes on in the real world and what happens in the schools. And it's incredibly difficult to recognize the disconnect and actually live inside the school. So I got myself a hot seat down at Galvanize downtown. I started hanging out and geeking out with the young entrepreneur types in the startup community. I started engaging with the maker community and maker spaces all throughout Denver. But more than anything, I spent most of my time just thinking and talking and listening and learning from people. All different types of people. People who are educators, students, policymakers, artists, old people, young people, anybody. Anybody that was willing to talk to me, to share with me what it means for them to be a learner. Now, in these conversations that I had with people, what I was sort of able to sort of identify was who do I need to become in order to meet their learning needs. And in these conversations, I kind of narrowed it down to kind of three personas that I had to make the transition from teacher to something else. And those three personas are, first, the extreme learner. This is the person that takes their love for learning to a whole new level. Second, this is the experience architect. This is someone who designs learning experiences for other people with their needs at the forefront. And the third and final one is the social entrepreneur. This is the person who takes an idea, turns it into a big idea, and then turns it into a huge solution. And when I add all three of these together, the extreme learner, the experience architect, and the social entrepreneur, a new identity emerged. I was able to kind of redefine who I was going to be. Instead of being just a teacher, I was going to be a learning designer. And with a learner-designer identity, then I could sort of build the skills that I need to create a learning environment that might have the change that I'm looking for. So let me break down each one of these for you. Now, the extreme learner. This is not some adrenaline junkie who, during some sort of space jump, is trying to either read or perform sort of Shakespeare. They're not trying to sort of solve a differentiated equation within some sort of snake pit. That's not the kind of person I'm talking about with an extreme learner. The extreme learner to me is sort of a renegade. It's sort of a trailblazer. Someone who sort of develops their own curriculum based on their own purposes and their own passions and the things that drive them. They don't rely on the things that other people create for them. Now, the extreme learner, they operate under the philosophy that learning can happen anytime and anywhere. Now, what makes them extreme is not only their passion for learning, but it's also their ability to say, you know what, I value that anytime, anywhere learning experience just as much as the experience that happens in the classroom. And that's a huge perspective shift for many of us. Put those things undifferentiated on sort of the same level there. Now, the extreme learner realizes if they're going to make change, if they're going to have the scale of change that they want, they also have to assume the persona of the experience architect. Because the experience architect, like I mentioned before, is someone who focuses and concentrates all their energy on meeting the learning needs of other people. So the experience architect, using the process of empathy, will go into their communities, and they will talk and they will listen and learn from people and try to identify what do those people want to know, what do those people feel like they need to know, and then they will create and generate experiences around that information and empathy that they gain. Now, the experience architect doesn't start with content first and then build the experience. No, it starts with the learner's needs. And what really the entry point for the sort of the experience architect is the concept of engagement. They ask the question, is the learner engaged? If we can find engagement in learners from all different persuasions, if we can create experiences that are going to sort of drive them and motivate them, maybe that can be the catalyst for change for them outside of school and actually inside school too. So the ultimate goal for the experience architect is how do we engage those disengaged students and try to find that thing that's really going to sort of motivate them to be the real person that they want to be. Because when we ask questions around engagement, we're talking about emotional questions. We're talking about intellectual questions. We are talking about questions of identity. So those are really, really personal issues. And once again, like any great designer who can meet the needs of their user, success is going to be there. The potential and possibility is almost limitless. Now, the experience architect also feels that, sure, working within my community is a great thing, and I'm making an impact there, but I still want to grow it even larger. So the experience architect is then going to assume the role of the social entrepreneur. Now, when I think of the social entrepreneur, I think of somebody who's not working in isolation, independent of everything else that's going on in the real world. The social entrepreneur is part of what I like to call a dream team of learning designers. These are extreme learners, experienced architects, and other social entrepreneurs who are identifying a major challenge that exists in society. They're generating a multitude of ideas or solutions to solve those problems and those challenges. And then they're testing and retesting those prototypes that they're creating. And all along this process, they're constantly listening to the learners that they're trying to design for. So the extreme learner focuses on the individual, the experience architect focuses on the community, and then the social entrepreneur expands it to much more of a societal level. So I'm at a turning point in my career. And a little over a month from now, I'm going to sort of be leaving sort of the teaching profession. Not just for the summer, but for I don't know how long. And what I'm trying to do is I'm going to try to generate new ideas based on the information that I started to gain during my sabbatical. And I'm going to continue to empathize with the community, both here in Stapleton, in Denver, Colorado as a whole, and then beyond. Because the idea that I want here to make sure is that people understand that education can no longer be the sole responsibility of schools. The demands that we have as a society are just too great. Teachers are spread so thin. The students are stressed beyond sort of belief. So we need to make sure that our entire community is supporting this education effort. So the learning designer creates those learning experiences outside of schools that are going to support what's happening inside of school. It's the place where creativity, imagination, and innovation can actually happen. So many of the things we heard about earlier, right, by Caroline, we sort of begin to see in action here. So what I'll be doing for the next 12 months with my dream team here is I'll be designing what's called a connected learning community. And the name of this community is the Hive. Now the Hive Learning Network is an attempt to bring educators and teachers and learners together with folks within the creative industries and the arts, all in an attempt to create new learning opportunities for students. With the overall goal of trying to engage students with real-world experiences, things that are based on real life, things that are built within our real communities. So keep your eye out for the Hive in the year 2015. Thanks very much.